Alright, so good afternoon po ulit sa ating mga manonood. Hindi ko po alam kung nasaan kayong parte ng Pilipinas or baka you're not in the Philippines, but it's a gloomy Sunday afternoon for me. Baka ganun din po sa inyo. But I hope you're just relaxing kung nasan man po. Wala po ako sa mall actually, virtual background na nawa lang po sa bahay na background. But let's start po with our GEG APAC Weekend Live 4.0. We're actually on the last afternoon session na po. So sa mga tumutok sa amin since Friday, maraming salamat po. And we still have three more talks lined up po. So sana kasama pa rin namin kayo ngayong hapon. For our next speaker po, this is actually a very interesting talk kasi based on the title of the talk, utilizing Google FORMative assessments. Parang may idea na tayo kung anong Google tool ang gagamitin na ito. But let's have our speaker discuss that na for us. Our speaker for today po is a very multi-decorated educator and I'm actually excited to learn more about his talk for today. So let's welcome po Mr. Marge Joseph or Sir MJ Sardo. Sir MJ, good afternoon po.
Good afternoon po. So thank you very much po ulit Miss Nat and Miss Maan for inviting me for this afternoon session. So yan po. Again, ini-invite po namin kayong lahat na manood sa aming mga channel sa FB and sa YouTube. And I hope that you will learn more about utilizing Google Forms, especially in our online classroom setup. So yun po.
Ayun, sir. And since you'll be with us for actually 2 hours straight kasi we have two talks back to back. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Sir MJ?
So I am from Angelo Levar Loyola Senior High School. So I've been teaching for a public school. So for almost 4 years na po. And yun, I decided to become an educational technology advocate because
Mhm.
nakita ko yung potential niya, especially ngayong new normal. No? Malaki ang naitutulong ng mga educational technology tools, especially Google Education Tools. So
Mhm.
to continue yung ating educational quality ngayong lalong-lalo na ngayong pandemic. So yun po. And aside from that, I want to of course build and train aspiring teachers din na gusto din gumamit ng ganitong klaseng tool.
I see. Well, that's a
Ayan.
very nice advocate, sir. And let's go ahead na po. Let's get started with your talk. Go ahead, Sir MJ.
Thank you very much po. So I'll be discussing or I'll be sharing with you how are we going to utilize Google Forms in our formative assessment. So yan. So for our session outline for this afternoon, I have a very small division of topics. So first one natin is introduction to formative assessment. So we need to clarify it and we need to define kung ano ba talaga yung formative assessment na tinatawag. And aside from that, we have formative assessments using Google Forms. So we can integrate yung ating Google Forms in making our formative assessments. And of course, number 3 is ways on how I'll be introducing to you some of the ways na na-experience ko on how my students and other people have the yun, may mga instances kasi that they cheat in Google Forms. And to combat that, I will also show to you the different practices that I use to prevent this from happening. So yan. So to start the introduction, so what is formative assessment ba? So formative assessment is a process used by teachers and of course students during instruction that provides feedback to adjust ongoing teaching and learning to improve students' achievement of intended instructional outcome. So napansin po natin na highlight ko yung word na during instruction and of course provide feedback. No. So bakit? Kasi we have several types of assessment and usually kasi ang ating connotation pagdating sa formative assessment, 'di ba? Nandiyan yung quiz. Yan, yung iba kasi sa atin aminin man natin we use formative assessment as a basis for grades. Pwede naman siyang gamitin at some part pero the main goal of formative assessment is to provide feedback talaga. So if we already see the feedback kung natutunan ba ng students yung lesson, kung meron ba silang mga additional questions or inquiries, ayan, we can adjust, no? Nakalagay dito, we can adjust, no? Based on those evidences that that we acquired from their outputs. So, they say that effective formative assessments involves collecting evidence about how student learning is progressing during the course of instruction so that necessary instructional adjustments can be made to close the gap between students' current understanding and the desired goals. So dito papasok yung ating ability to close the gap between kung ano yung alam ng students at kung ano yung dapat nating target based on our objectives or learning competencies. So yan, so we will collect evidences and the mode or the medium for us to collect these evidences is of course through the use of formative assessment integrated in, I mean, through the use of Google quizzes or Google Forms integrated to our formative assessments. Ayan. So, um, we'll start with formative assessment using Google Forms. So, I tried to find the different formative assessments na meron tayo. And mostly, ang meron sa loob ng formative assessments, or I mean, ang formative assessments na meron sa loob ng Google Forms ay usually for quizzes, di ba? So, meron dong multiple choice, meron dong surveys, meron dong iba't ibang type. So parang apat yata yung pwede nating piliin para magkaroon tayo ng magandang design sa ating formative assessments. So right now I'll be showing to you later kung ano yung mga pwede pa nating gawin sa loob ng Google Form. So this can be useful talaga because for ease of access na din. So later makikita natin bakit ko sinabing for ease of access. So before that, we can start with defining what Google Form is. So it's a free online tool from Google which allows us or allows users to create forms and surveys, quizzes, and as well as collaboratively edit and share the forms with other people. So that is the power of Google Forms, no? So yan, so before we begin with the different types of assessment, so we have here the SAMR model. So this is divided into two. So nakita natin dito, the upper part is all about transformation and the lower part is all about enhancement. So this is from the bottom, no, to top tayo. So the first thing that we need to understand is that this model is an interpretation of how we integrate, no, yung educational tools in our teaching and learning process, no. So yung first step natin is substitution. We need not to forget that technology acts as a direct tool substitute with no functional change. So this is just a substitute, no. Like kagaya ng sinabi sa lahat ng sessions na na-attendan ko this GEG APAC. So nabanggit that nila na the teachers, no, hindi kailanman mapapalitan ng technology ang teachers. So yan. So which is true because technology, it can be a means as a substitution lang talaga or a direct tool for substitute. Pero the one who will control it is of course us teachers. So yan, so in Google Forms, 'di ba, we can use this, no, instead of sa Google Forms kasi instead of giving students papers, no, ang provide tayo ng paper para dun sila magsagot, we use Google Forms as a substitute, no. So paperless na tayo ngayon. So that is how this works. So augmentation, technology acts as a direct tool substitute with functional improvement. So ano yung ibig sabihin ng augmentation? So if ilalagay natin si Google Form dito sa step number 2, it means that si Google Form ay may mga pinopropose kasi na steps, no, to facilitate yung iba't ibang types ng learners. So hindi lahat ng estudyante ay may kakayahang magsagot ng Google Form at the same time. So we have a Google Form that can cater all those individuals regardless of the time, regardless of the place. So that is how Google Forms presents its function in terms of augmentation. So modification technology allows for significant task design. So it can be, yun nga sabi ko nga, it can be a quiz, it can be used as a survey form, a survey tool, yun. an information system, yan. So we can use those. And redefinition, technology allows for creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. So after nating mag-gather lahat ng data na kailangan natin using the Google Forms, we have now the ability to see and interpret those data and then adjust yung lessons na meron tayo. So that is how we redefine, no? We redefine teaching and learning using those integrations of technological tools. So this is the SMR model. You can use this as a guide, no, to be able to see kung nasa ang step na ba kayo ng paggamit ng technology integration sa inyong teaching and learning. Ayan, so here are the different formative assessments that we can use um, in our Google Forms. No, so we can do KWL charts, we can do 3, 2, 1. So later i-reveal ko kung ano to, and then exit ticket. So I will not show you how we can use Google Forms, no. So maraming sessions tayo sa GEG APAC ng dinidescribe na nila or diniscuss na nila how to navigate Google Forms. So if you wanted to learn more about that, you can review the previous sessions, no. We have these sessions last Friday and Saturday. So you can visit that. So I'll show to you kung ano yung contents ng KWL, 3, 2, 1, and exit ticket. Ayan. So, I'll show to you something. Yan. So this one is a project, no, created by a teacher sa ibang bansa siya. So yan, this is a repository of all the formative assessments that we can do using Google Forms, no. So nakapili na ako ng 3 lang na madali lang naman siyang gawin. So ano yung ano yung pwede niyang ipakita sa atin, ganyan. So ano yung content na pwede nating ilagay, yun yung ilalagay natin. So we have 3, 2, 1, we have agree or disagree. So agree and disagree is all about getting students' opinion, no? So nakalagay din dito analogy. So you can do that. We can look for the students' background knowledge. Yan. We can also ask them some burning questions. We can use this as demo form. Evaluate effectiveness. Yan. So we can use this, of course, to example yung inquiry, excuse as exit ticket, free write, and so on and so forth. Ayan. So I can give this to you, no? Because this is published, no? At pwede din siyang gamitin publicly. So this is under Creative Commons. So pwede natin siyang i-distribute. So yung Google Drive, siguro I'll comment it later sa ating session, no? So yan, I'll try to visit muna yung the 3 major formative assessments that I find na maganda. Okay. So, ayan. So this one is what we call the 3, 2, 1 activity. And so ano yung nakalagay dito? It's common for us to collect information sa ating mga students. So nakalagay dyan ng email, we can do that, last name, first name. Yan. So this is really important. So if you wanted to add more, kagaya ng student number, section, yan, pwede naman siyang gawin. Just make sure lang that you have that you know the roles and responsibilities of having this kind of data, no. So make sure na hindi tayo masasubject sa paglabag sa Data Privacy Act. So we need to acquire this information and make it as secret as possible, as confidential as possible. Ayan. So sa 3 things natin, 3, 2, 1, this is about 3 things. So what are the 3 things that you have learned from today's lesson? So this is just like an exit ticket for us. So students will be able to put the 3 things that they learned from today's session. So aside from that, 2 inquiries. So ano yung mga nabubuong tanong pa or ano yung mga hindi pa malinaw sa kanila na na-discuss natin today. So yun yung pwede nating ilagay dyan. 2 inquiries. So what are the two things that you still want to know more about today's lesson? So kung mapapansin nyo, this is not a quiz, di ba? This is something, or this is an instrument we can use to identify kung alin ba yung mga natutunan ng bata, yung mga hindi pa nila masyadong natututunan, and of course, yung mga nabubuong tanong sa kanila. So with that, after nating mag-collect ng information, no, based on this Google Forms, no, at pag nabasa natin yung mga comments na yun at yung mga ideas nila, we can include it on the next day of the lesson. No? So we can adjust our lesson and address most of it, address some of it, or integrate yung mga responses na pwede nating integrate sa loob na ng lesson. So with that, makikita ng estudyante na um, nasagot ni teacher yung gusto kong alamin. Natakal ni teacher yung gusto kong matakel, and nalinawan ako dun sa mga bagay na hindi ako masyadong nakasabay. So yun yung magiging effect if we are going to include our formative assessment in our lesson. So ang kagandahan ng Google Forms is, 'di ba, after nating makakuha ng responses, we can extract it using our Google Sheets. And ang maganda sa Google Sheets is nakalatag sa isang column lahat ng questions na meron. So for example, sa particular question na ito or particular response prompt na ito, so three things, pag in-extract natin siya sa Excel, naka-table, no, listed siya. So we will be able to read all the three things na hindi na natutunan ng mga bata. So that is how we can utilize Google Forms, no. At saka we can also prevent students, no, from we can also encourage students to answer individually. So hindi sila matatakot magsagot kasi Google Sheets, yung answers dito sa Google Forms and yung mga responses sa Google Sheets ay hindi naka-public. So tayo lang yung may access unless we share it to other people. So yan, this is my way, this is our way on how we can create yung tinatawag nating frequently asked questions. So Google Form din kami usually. Ayan. So aside from that, we have the next one. Ano ba yung sunod? Exit ticket. Ayan. So yan. Exit ticket, same. You need to gather personal information na make sure that na safe sila. And then, students can evaluate, no, kung ano yung effectiveness ng lesson na meron sila or na-discuss sa kanila. Also, you can use this tool to evaluate kung ano ba yung sabihin nating expertise o yung pagkakaintindi ng mga bata sa bawat lesson. So, nasaan na ba sila? If i-rate nila yung kanilang understanding, ano yung rating, and bakit, ganyan. So, pwede natin siyang gamitin. And make sure that you have here, eto. So, bago ko balikan tong topic, meron dito sa ibaba na open response, no? This is, we can do that, no? Para yung mga bata, para yung mga students, meron silang way or mode para masabi or maipadala sa atin yung mga gusto pa nilang masabi na hindi included doon sa response prompts na meron tayo or sa questions na meron tayo. So pag sinabi nating open response, pwede nating ilagay dyan na ano pa yung gusto nilang sabihin, may gusto ba silang ibigay, may gusto silang itanong, ayan. So we have a mode for them to show kung ano talaga yung mga pwede pa nilang malaman. Ayan. So at this point din, pwede rin tayong makakuha ng mga responses na hindi natin inaakala na ay kailangan pala siya ng students, ganyan. So for our exit ticket, make sure to include the feedback. So ano yung masasabi nila sa lesson or kung ano yung pwede nilang i-suggest, no? So kung may nakita ba silang flaws, ano yung pwedeng paano siya i-address, so yan. Pwede nating kunin yung side ng mga students. So yan. Takeaways, of course, this is really important. So with this, we will be able to understand kung naintindihan ba talaga ng mga students yung lesson or anything, no, about that. So takeaways can be also used to select, no. Pwede natin kunin yung mga takeaways kasi 'di ba, importante sa classroom or sa online classes yung tinatawag nating safe space. And isa sa category na para makita natin if safe ba yung classroom natin is we know how to give affirmations or we know how to sabihin natin we know how to celebrate success. So dito sa takeaway, we can use statements ng students. Halimbawa, nag-send sila ng appreciation, nag-send sila ng um, positive messages. Yan, we can use it, no, and then show it to other students, no. So with that, magkakaroon ng siguro self-achievement yung mga bata na makikita nila, ito yung sinabi ko ah. And pero pwede nyo natin siyang ibigay ng anonymous, no. So yan. So we can use it, no. Marami siyang pwedeng gawin. Marami tayong pwedeng gawin sa Google Forms, no. At marami tayong pwedeng makuha using this one. So last one is application. So this one is of course part ng ating lesson plan. So how might you apply what you have learned in class today to the real world? So yan, pwede nating itanong sa mga bata. And we will see how critical thinkers, kung gaano sila ka-critical mag-isip. Dito natin siya pwedeng ma-base. No? And we can use this application part as a basis kung ano ba yung mga steps na pwede nating gawin, paano pa natin matatap yung critical skills ng mga bata. So yan. So this is for the exit ticket. Yan. So don't forget to include open response, no. Ayan. So finally, I have the last part, no. KWLA chart. Yan. So these are just ideas, no, kung paano natin siya pwedeng gamitin. So first one natin, of course, yung information, and then yan. Alam naman natin yung format ng KWLA chart. So know what you already know about the lesson. So if may mga students tayo na alam na nila halos lahat, so we can 'di ba, sa atin we can do individualized instruction, we can provide them, no, specific activities that will improve what they already know. So for what do you want to know about the lesson topic? So pwede yan. Learn, what do you learn about the lesson, and apply, how could you apply what you have learned in the lesson in this real world. So same lang din siya almost ng sa exit form. But this one is really more on knowing kung ano yung knowledge ng bata doon sa lesson before, during, and after. Ayan. So, these are the several ways on how we can use Google Forms, no? Ayan. So, aside from this, pwede natin siyang gawin, no? Ang nakita na potential. So, ay yung tinatawag natin na kumustahan, no? Ayan. So I created an asynchronous kumustahan session for my students kasi hindi lahat ng estudyante may kakayahang mag-online class doon sa school namin. So I created an asynchronous kumustahan wherein I include questions, no, which can be used as a basis for my adjustments. So nilagay ko dito ay kumustahan na asynchronous. So ayan, medyo hindi pa masyadong na-sort out yung questions, but yung first question ko dito, using the scale of 1 to 10, rate your feelings from the past weeks of quarter 3. Ayan, kasi sa school namin, meron kami mga programs ng kumustahan, and teachers, let us put in mind that kumustahan is a part of a formative assessment, no? So hindi lang siya always related sa ating educational or lessons. Pwede rin siya doon sa overall value ng mga overall well-being ng mga bata. Kasi this one can be one of the factors we can consider in revising our lessons or the way on how we deliver our lessons. So mamaya na may mga comments dito sa ang mga students ko. So ayan, state the reason of your response. So i-explain lang nila kung bakit 7, bakit 6, ganyan. So also please type your concerns. Ayan, so this one is really important kasi yan, napansin din natin sa panahon ng pandemic that students, every one of us needs help naman talaga. So, kung ano yung concerns natin na hindi natin masabi sa iba, we can say it using this Google form, no? And as a teacher, we can sort out things, no? We can select yung mga immediate concerns, yung mga minor concerns, major concerns, but those concerns need to be addressed. So of course, this the next one is the challenges that they met. Ayan, so ano yung mga hindrances na experience na mga bata. And of course, yan, the solutions that they made. So possible solutions na makikita natin dito, that kasi bakit kung tinanong yung possible solutions, makikita natin ma-evaluate natin if ang bata ay may kakayahang yun nga, bukod sa magdesisyon ng sarili is may kakayahan silang mag-solve ng problems, no? So that is a 21st century skill. So they need to be problem solvers. So pag nakita natin yung solutions that they made, we can see there if yung solutions ba nila is appropriate, yung solutions ba nila needs to be improved. Ayan. So 'di ba doon naman nag-start lahat talaga. So and lastly, queries, no? So this is more of a personal approach sa mga bata, sa mga students. And this is really important. So ano yung naging ano natin, responses. So ayan may ano. Ayan, so meron dito mga responses. So ayan, so nakikita natin dito, medyo palaking ko lang ng konti. Ay, hindi siya napapalaki. So for example, please type your concern. So ayan, nahihirapan po ako magpasa ng activities this past few weeks. So meron tayong makikita talaga na mga potential problems na pwede naman nating isipan ng mga appropriate solutions, no? So nakikita natin dito maraming problems yung mga students. Merong ibang wala. Ayan. So this is the value of using Google Forms and integrating it to Google Sheets. Isang bagsakan lang yung pagbabasa natin. Mababasa natin lahat talaga ng problems, sorted out na siya into columns, no? Of course, madali natin siyang magagawan ng category. So ito ba ay immediate, ito ba ay minor, major, ganyan. That is how we utilize the power of Google Forms, no? So we can use this in making quizzes. Di ko na kayo tuturuan gumawa ng quiz kasi this is really for me, ayun nga, bukod sa reviewing yung mga sessions, will focus on the power of Google Forms, no? Especially in this time of pandemic. Ayun. So if you have time, you can do this also, no? And so this is an example of my formative assessment. So ang mga techniques ko pagdating dito sa formative assessment, isa lang yung ito. I do sections. So I include, of course, I include several images, multimedia, kung pwede, no? And hindi ako masyadong gumagamit ng quiz na multiple choice. So I try to make this as improve the way of how I present the assessment to my students. So kagaya dito, so quiz siya na maraming mga students siguro, ang make sure lang natin pag ganito, dapat malinaw yung instructions, no? So kagaya nito, 2 answers per row ang hinihingi ko. So pili sila dito, is the red giant, ay mali, hindi pala siya preview. Ayan. So kagaya nito, dalawa yung answers dito, dalawa per row, no. So with this, medyo mahirapan yung mga students, no. Later pala i-discuss ko din naman. Medyo mahirapan silang mag-cheat pag ganyan yung layout ng ating exams. So yan, 'di ba? Medyo siya, kung titingnan natin medyo madami pero at least we will prevent yung paggamit ng overuse ng multiple choice. Yan. So may mga section 3, true or false na pala to. Ito yung mga multiple choices na ginamit ko. Yan. So hindi na naman siya masyadong importante. Ayan. So those are the different ways on how we can use Google Forms in different types of assessments. So if you have any suggestions pa bukod dun sa mga nabanggit ko kay WL chart, survey form, kumustahan form, 1 to 3 to 1 pala, and then exit ticket or exit forms. So you can use it, no? So aside from that, we'll move on. Yan, with the ways on how people cheat in Google Forms. So, syempre bago tayo mag-propose ng mga practices, alamin muna natin kung paano ba or kung ano ba yung mga usual practices ng mga students natin pagdating sa pagsasagot ng Google Forms. Ayan. So these are the different, ito yung compiled ko na 6 common practices na ginagawa ng mga students. I'm not saying that all my students are cheaters. What I'm saying is, in this time of pandemic kasi talaga, marami talagang bagay ang nagagawa ng mga ibang students and of course kahit teachers din naman. No, we let us treat this or let us consider this cheating problem as a problem that is needed to be solved. No, hindi natin siya pwedeng gamitin to depreciate a person or a student. No? So, para lang maiwasan natin yung or para lang masolusyonan natin yung cheating. Kasi this is nabasa ko sa isang article, this is um one of the most important that is needed to be addressed. So ito yung isa sa pinakamalaking problema ng mga teachers lalong-lalo na ngayong pandemic. So first one is preview your form before the class, look up at answers. So yan, usually kasi we teachers provide Google Classrooms, 'di ba? And doon sa Google Classroom nandun na lahat ng dapat gawin ng mga students, no. We include there yung materials, we include there yung recording ng sessions, and of course, nilalagay natin doon yung quizzes. Tapos yung mga students natin, yan, they have the ability to review those forms, no, and then research their answers. Sa Google Forms kasi, if you are going to upgrade your account, meron silang feature wherein pwedeng i-lock yung quiz, yung Google Form. So, anong ibig sabihin ko dun sa pwedeng i-lock? Once na meron kayong um, upgrade sa Google Form with that feature, ang mga students nyo, once na mag-open ng Google Form, they don't have the ability to go outside those Google Forms. No? Nandun lang sila sa Google Form. Hindi sila makakapag-open ng additional tabs para makapag-look ng answers. So yan, aside from that, take screenshots of or print the quiz question. So usually kapag ang quizzes natin isang bagsakan or I mean walang sections, 'di ba? Pwedeng-pwede kasi siyang i-print ng bata. So paano print? 'Di ba pagka dito sa laptops and computers may pwede natin siyang i-save as PDF ganyan. So yun yung mga usual ginagawa ng mga students para at least hindi na nila um, isulat yung mga questions. Madali na nila madidistribute yung mga questions. Usually pa nga yung mga questions ng ibang assessment natin nasa brainly.ph, diba? Parang nagugulat ako one time na, ay, ito yung question ko nandito sa brainly.ph. So, yun. So, yun yung mga usually na nangyayari. Aside from that, ayan nga, open a tab to look for answers. So, send questions or answers to their friends. Yan, ginagawa yan. May instances na rin na nangyari yan. So, use different account to retrieve answer keys. Ayan. So, isa sa mga downside ng Google Forms na may answer keys is yung ibang students gumagamit ng ibang email para mag-answer, no? So, magsaselect lang sila ng mga answers na sa tingin nila yun yung sagot. And then, once they submitted the form, yung score nila ay mare-reveal together with the answer keys. So, yun yung mga pwedeng gawin ng mga students. Yan. So, let us lastly, right-click on words to check definitions and spelling. So kapag ang ating mga questions ay hindi masyadong naiintindihan ng mga students, no, they have the ability to research or to find the meaning of the words na nahihirapan sila. Yan. Kaya madali nilang nasasagutan yung mga quizzes. So yan, marami pang mga ways on how students or how teachers or say mga people who uses Google Forms in assessment. No? Marami pang ways kung paano sila nagkakaroon ng means to cheat. So ang job natin is of course to combat those practices. So i-combat natin siya using additional practices which is of course available in Google Forms, no. So yan. So I'll demo this later. So marami tayong pwedeng gawin sa Google Forms. So isa na dito ayan, shuffle question order and answer choices. I'll be showing it to you later. Basahin lang natin lahat. So use page sections to block assignment previews. So yan, use page breaks to create alternative assessment path. Use multimedia aside from multiple choice types. use add-ons such as form limiter and apply all practices para mas better yung security ng ating Google form. So, disclaimer lang, um, hindi porket ginawa natin tong mga practices to, automatically ma-eliminate natin yung cheating or yung cheating practices, no? So, these are just suggestions, no, na pwede nating gawin to utilize Google Forms and combat cheating, especially in this new normal. So, yan. So, tandaan po natin na hindi lahat ng ito ang makakapagtanggal ng cheating. So, yan. So, marami pa kasing ways and of course, ano ba yung trabaho natin? Kailangan lang natin siyang i-eliminate. I mean, i-combat, no? Labanan lang. So, yan. So, I'll be showing to you some of the practices. Ayan. So, this is a sample form, no? Pwede natin gawin. Kunwari, lagyan ko siya ng name. This is a quiz. So, apply natin yung ating first practice. Before anything else muna, check mo nyo muna itong settings, no? So, dito tayo unang-unang magbabago, no? So, for safer and for a more tawag dito, secure na answers, we need to check this one. Collect email responses, no? So pag kinolect natin yung email, at least we have the ability to see kung sino-sino na yung mga nag-answer. But never check response receipts. Ayan. So kung may mga answers kasi tayo or may mga questions, no, wag nating i-check tong response receipts. So ano ba yung purpose ng response receipts? For example, sabihin natin kunwari, yung Google form ginawang payment siya ng halimbawa isang bill, yan. So ginamit nila Google Form. So pag gumamit ng Google Form, makaka-receive ng response yung of course yung nagsagot, no. Makikita nila na ito yung responses ko kanina, ayan. So do not check response receipts. So para hindi sila maka-receive ng kanilang. Pwede nitong gamitin siguro sa mga for example, sa mga registrations ganyan. Yan, pwede siyang gamitin. So, or attendance, kung nagpa-attendance kayo dito sa Google Form, no? Tapos, hindi matandaan ng students if nakapag-attendance na ba siya, they can look at on their emails. So, i-check natin yung response receipt. Pero at this point, hindi natin siya i-select. So, aside from that, click limit to one response. So, meaning to say, pag gumamit, ang students na pag inopen niya to, isang beses niya lang to ma-open sa kanyang browser. So, yan. And then, do not check edit after submit and see summary charts and text responses, no? Ayan. So, wag natin siyang i-check. So, this is under general. So, we can collect the email and we can limit to one person. So, sa presentation, ayan. Ito yung may malaking part din sa atin, no? So before kasi walang feature ang Google Form to shuffle questions. Ngayon meron na silang feature to shuffle question. Ayan. So if you wanted to show them the progress bar, ito kasi yung ano ba yung progress bar? Ito yung number sa ilalim. Kung ilang sections meron ng isang Google Form, no. So 'di ba may mga nakikita tayong 1 out of 6 ganyan, 2 out of 6 ganyan. So yun yung progress bar. So wag na lang natin siya ilagay. And then ayan, pwede tayong maglagay dito ng confirmation message once na mag-submit si students, yun yung lalabas. Pero pwede naman itong default na lang na statement, your response has been recorded. So default naman siya, kahit di na natin siya i-edit. And of course, make this as a quiz. So hindi mag-a-apply yung ating ating mga practice mamaya kung hindi natin siya i-check, no? So ano po yung after nating i-check yung quiz, of course, tingnan natin kung may options pa ba na makaka-apekto. So, i-release ba natin yung grade agad or ipapakita ba natin agad sa students yung score nila immediately after submission? Pwede naman later. So, later na lang natin siyang ilalagay. Kasi pag immediately, tanda ni students yung sagot niya and then, ito lang yung score na nakuha ko. But, yun, right siya ng student na malaman yung score nila, pero pwede naman siyang sabay-sabay. So, hindi naman sinabi na kapagtas ng exam, agad dapat malaman ng bata yung score. So, pwedeng sabay-sabay yan once na ano na yung lahat, makapag-exam na. So, of course, do not check this one, correct answers. Yan, dito madalas dito nagkakaroon ng means para makapag-cheat yung mga students. Eh. So, do not check correct answers. Pwedeng check yung point values kung ilan yung points kasi pwede nilang gamitin to as a way to, ayan, medyo umuulan na dito sa amin, as a way to check if yung responses ba ay kailangan dalawa, tatlo, yan. So, missed questions, wag niyo na rin checkan kasi ang missed question, ipapakita lang kung ano yung mali, kung anong number yung mali, saan sila nagkamali. Yan. So, pwede naman kasi sa last na to i-evaluate. So, yan. So, after that, do not forget to click save. Yan. So, once we click save, yan. We applied the number 1. So, ano yung number 1 natin? Shuffle question order and answer choices. So, ano yung answer choices? So, for example, yan, may ready na akong tanong dito. Yan. So, pag tayo gumagawa ng pwede natin i-copy-paste yung mga questions. Di ba, may mga ginagawa tayong exams, pwede natin siyang ilagay dito. So, kuha lang ako ng option. Yan. So, copy-paste lang yung ginawa ko. Yan. Make sure to click this one, required. Dapat required siya, no? So, sa multiple choice kasi, we have here, ayan, yung snowman. Ito yung tinatawag nilang snowman. Sabi ni Sir Franco, instant fishball or quick. So, yan. Click nyo lang siya and then click shuffle option order. So, ano yung ginawa natin sa step 1? Shuffle question order and shuffle answer. Meaning to say, lahat ng students natin, pag nag-take sila ng exam, hindi kung ano, magkakaiba sila ng questions na makikita. Hindi lahat ng question number 1 kanina ay magiging question number 1 sa iba. So, mag-shuffle siya. So, kailangan tanggalin niya rin tong numbers ha. And syempre, clues din yan. Ayan. So, dapat wala siyang number. Ay, sorry. Yan. So, yan. This is how we will be able to utilize Google Forms. So, answer natin, of course, lalagay natin yung answer. Yan. So, this is inspected morning. Yan. So, ang points natin, of course, lagay natin kung ilan. So, 1 point lang siya kunwari. And then click done. So, answer feedback, pwede kayong maglagay ng answer ng feedback. Sa incorrect answer, ano ba yung usual na ginagawa? Pwede nating ilagay dito, try again. Yan. Or pwede namang review your notes, ganyan. So, correct answers, kunwari, very good na lang. Yan, save. Okay? So, click natin yung done. So, para hindi na kayo paulit-ulit sa paggawa, sa paglalagay ng mga actions, kagaya nun yung kanina, nilagyan natin ng comment. So, pwede natin siyang i-duplicate, no? Click nyo lang tong duplicate button sa baba. Ayan. So, dito pwede na tayong gumamit ng iba't ibang means. So, pwedeng multiple choice ulit, checkbox, drop down, ganyan. So, at least lahat ng format na nilagay natin dito sa first question will be available at this part. So, yan. So, syempre, babaguhin natin yung questions, not forget. So, maglalagay lang ako ng isa pang question. So, para naman meron tayong dalawang examples kahit pa paano. Ay, answer pala to. Ayan. Medyo ayusin ko lang to. A, B, sorry. B, C, so instead of words, pwede rin naman kayong gumamit ng mga images para mas challenging, no, sa mga students. Yan. So answer key, baguhin natin. Natural process. So that's natural. Yan. Done. Ayan. So ang kanya, naka-apply din dito yung shuffle order. So hindi ko na siya kailangan i-click kasi kinopy ko lang or dinuplicate ko lang yung meron dito sa una. So yan. So that is how we will be able to avoid necessary para magkakaiba na lang sila ng set din. So exit ko muna to. So additional means is to use page sections to block assessment. So ano yung page sections, no? So since ito yung ginawa kong una ay diretso agad, no? Nakalimutan ko maglagay ng iba pang mga questions, no? So pwede ko siyang ilagay dito. Yan. And then lipat natin sa ibang section yung quiz. Ayan, nasa pangalawang section na yung quiz. So quiz, this is the quiz. And ito yung tinatawag natin na sections. Yan. So, dito, ang pwede nating ilagay is yung mga personal information na pwede natin kunin. So, pwede dito email. Ayan, short answer required. So, sa answer key, wala po kayong ilalagay. So, hindi naman siya ma-read ng Google Form as a quiz or hindi siya bibigyan ng points unless meron siyang answer key. So, dahil hindi naman to required na answer key na maging quiz. I mean, itong part lang na to. So, hindi natin siya kailangang ilagay. So, email address natin. Ayan. So, make sure dito sa mga parts na to, pwede naman nating ilagay yung gusto nating format, no, ng mga bata. So, dito naman sa email address. Yan. So, after ng email address, dinuplicate ko lang siya. Pwede naman first name. Yan. And then, last name. Pero bakit po kailangan hiwa-hiwalay yung mga names? Mas madali po ito kasi minsan 'di ba sa mga forms natin, meron iba ang hinahanap last name muna, merong iba first name muna. At least dito pag magkahiwalay na agad sila. So pwede lang natin silang pagsamahin using Google Sheets, yung concatenate na tinatawag. Pwede naman 'yun. Ayan. So para dito, so pag preview ko 'to, yan, one way is hindi agad makikita yung quiz. So, hindi ko siya man-next unless sagutan ko tong mga to. So, yan. So, if lalagyan ko siya ng sagot, kunwari, mag-move forward lang siya kapag meron na siya mga answer. Yan. So, tsaka lang nila makikita yung quiz. So, sabi ni ang iba siguro sa inyo nagtataka, paano po yun? Ibig sabihin, pwede naman kami maglagay dyan ng mga hindi naman about sa amin, di ba? I mean, mga ibang information. Kagaya ng sa akin, hindi ko talaga original email tong mj@sardo@gmail.com. This is just a made-up email para lang makaproceed ako. Kasi this is an email, so dapat gmail.com. So, yun yung feature na nalagay ko dito, which is pwede tayong maglagay ng passwords. No? So, ano po yung passwords na sinasabi natin? So, section password siya. So, ano yung section password? Lalagay ko siya dito. Yan. So, lagay natin kunwari password. Yan. So, ano yung option na lalagay natin dyan? So, short paragraph. So, this is required, no? Ayan, babalik ulit tayo dito sa snowman, and click response validation. So, yan. So, ang response validation natin, pwede tayong gumamit ng number, text, length, regular expression. So, dito yung mga instances na halimbawa, gusto mo password, no? So, kunwari, text yung ilalagay natin. So, this text contains, so pwedeng does not contain, pwedeng email, URL. So, ang gusto kong ilalagay ay, gusto ko, ang password ko ay ganito. Kunwari, ang password na gusto ko ay Marge. Yan, Marge 01. Yan. So, March 01, remember, ito yung password na March 01 na password yan. So, remember, do not forget to include a text here. Bakit? Kasi pag hindi natin siya nilagyan ng text, so, pakita muna natin na kung ano yung mangyayari. So, pag ito yung format. Yan. So this is the section. Ayan, password. Sir, bakit ganito? Bale-balente lang dito sa part na to. Nakashuffle lang questions natin na do not forget that. So okay lang naman yan. Hindi naman sila mawawala dyan. So kunwari, mjsardo@gmail.com. First name, MJ. Last name, sorry, tab. Sardo. Password. Oh, hindi ko alam yung password. Ayan, lumabas. Must contain Marge 01. So, pinakita yung password na Marge 01, di ba? Marge 01. Ayan. So, lagay ako email. Makaka-proceed pa rin ako sa kabila kasi pinakita niya yung Marge 01. Pero pag nilagyan natin siya dito, class tuloy, sorry, teachers, yan. Kunwari, ilalagay ko dyan, insert the password. Sorry. Insert the password. Ayan. So, tingnan natin kung ano yung mababago. So, sj@gmail.com, Sardo, MJ, sorry, last name, email, sj@gmail.com, password, first name. Ayan. So, ang ipapakita ngayon ni password ay insert password. So, yun po Huwag kalimutan na ilagay ang text doon sa part na yun para hindi ipakita nung ano ang sagot. So, yan. Hindi ako makaka-proceed dito kung di ko alam ang password. So that is how we can use Google Form as a means to lock quizzes. Ayan. So yun yung second natin. Sorry. Medyo bilisan natin ng konti. Ayan. So yun lang naman. Pinakita ko na kung paano ginagamit ang Google Forms, no? Para sa media, pwede yun. Para ma-challenge naman yung mga bata. Yung options naman natin sa halip na text ay media. Ayan. So, meron pang isang last na siguro mas magandang makakatulong na din, no? So, bukod sa password, we can also use page sections naman yung choices. So, ano yung ibig sabihin dito? Sorry. Last natin, kunwari, ayan. Choose your favorite color. So, option 1, red. Option 2, blue. Option 3, gray. Yan. So, ano yung ipapakita natin dito? Pwede tayong pumili nung tinatawag natin na go to section based on answer. So, pag clinic ko yun sa snowman, makikita natin yun dito. So, continue to next section. Ang section ba na pupuntahan ko, gusto ko ay section 2, yung mismong quiz. Pwede natin ilagay dito, quiz, set A. So, syempre, wag na pala nating lagyan ng set A kasi makikita nila na, set A yung pinili ko. Ayan. So, pwede nating i-duplicate kasi yung section. So, kunwari, iba yung tanong dito iba yung tanong. Iba-iba yung mga questions na nakalagay dyan sa bawat sections. So, yan. So, pwede na yung, para yung bata, hindi niya alam na ito yung sinagutan niya. So, mahirapan siyang continue to next section. Pag pinili lang yung red, sa section 1 siya makapupunta. Sa section 2 na quiz. Pag pinili niya si blue, section 3. Pag pinili niya si gray, section 4. Ayan. So, after ng mga sections na to, dapat meron din kayo ditong dito? Dapat meron din kayo ditong ano ba yan? Nakalimutan ko yung term. Requirement, no? So, makikita ng mga students yan. So, try natin kung mag-a-apply ba siya. Yan, medyo matrabaho lang to kasi nakaka-require lahat. O kung napapansin nyo, di ba, iba-iba yung sinasagutan ko. Yung kanina, nauna yung name, first name, yan. So, red tayo, blue, first name, MJ, password, Marge 01. So, di ba, napaka-secure na niya after nun, Sardo. Yan. So, next natin, yun, lalabas na yung section na to. So, yun lang yung section na yun. Ayan. So yun lang. That is how we can utilize Google Forms, of course, in making formative assessment and preventing or combating the different ways on how students cheat on exams. So if you have questions or anything, please, ayan, yan, please ask later or pwede nyo i-comment para mabasa namin. So yun lang po. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir MJ, for your very informative talk on how we can further use Google Forms for formative assessments. There was actually an interesting question po in the comments. This is from Noki. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. What extensions would you suggest daw po that we use as we utilize Google Forms for the purpose of assessment?
Ayan, so meron akong ibang alam na mga Google Form extension. So isa na yung ginagamit namin is yung form limiter. If you're familiar with form limiter, ang form limiter na add-on has the ability to limit the responses. Pwede yon. Pwede nating i-limit yung responses kung ilan lang yung magsasagot. Ayan, so nagko-close form siya to use sa pagko-close ng form. So pwede rin natin siyang gamitin if we wanted students to tawag dito, marami siyang function. So, meron iba't ibang function yung Google Form limiter. So, pwede din
Okay.
siyang, ayan, hindi, ayan, wait lang po, ipapakita ko lang yung, so, pwede siya for date and time, no? Pwede din siya. So, pwede nating isara yung form at the specific time and date. So, yun lang.
All right. Ayun po. Aside from form limiter, do you have another one po na maire-recommend nyo na extension?
Meron, yes po, meron pang yung proctor and, oo, yung sa proctoring. So, pwede din siya.
Mm.
Meron ako nakita ditong form, ano yun, tatlo yung medyo na-install ko. Yung Certify-M kasi hindi siya for ano siya for scores, no? So pwede din yung
Yes.
Quilgo. Ayan, yung Quilgo, pwede din siya. Almost same functions din naman yung mga yun. Ayan po.
Ayan po. So, those are the recommended ano po, form extensions from Sir MJ para po sa mga hindi pa ganun ka-familiar saan nila makukuha or mahahanap yung extensions na binabanggit niya, sir. You could actually just do a quick Google search po. Yung Chrome Web Store, doon yung po lahat makikita at napakadaling i-add lang po sa inyong Google form. Basta nakasign in kayo sa Google accounts ninyo. Ayun. So, for this one, I really appreciate how Sir MJ highlighted nga na meron kasing option to lock the Google form kasi nga yung challenge sa teachers to combat cheating. Kaya lang, aminado rin naman si Sir na hindi naman po lahat tayo nandoon sa ganong klaseng resources. That's why he suggested yung password na lang. I really like that idea na parang kailangan alam niya yung password for his own class. Otherwise, hindi sila makakontinue dun sa form. Ayun. So sabi nga po natin, our own speakers will always come up with resources na makakatulong sa educators without always having to shell out money. Kung ano po yung workaround, laging gagawan ng paraan. Ayun po. So, for Sir MJ's talk po, the evaluation form has already been sent in the chat as well as flashed on the screen po kanina. Please feel free to share your feedback po about this particular talk. We hope po na you watched the talk muna before answering the form just in case you're under hashtag team replay kasi marami pong factors. Minsan nagloko ang net or hindi lang siguro naabutan ng start. But answering the form po after you have watched this talk not only helps Sir MJ but at the same time, you have a chance of winning po a Google Certified Educator Level 1 voucher. So mamayang 6 p.m. na po actually ang ating weekend wrap-up and we hope nandun pa kayo kasi dun po i-announce ang ating winners. Ayan. So, I don't think there are any follow-up questions po. I'm checking the chat. I think we're good to go. So, for our first talk for this afternoon, maraming salamat, Sir MJ, and we'll be seeing you in the next talk naman po.
Thank you po. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you po in a bit.